You mentioned to me in an email that one mistake that you saw is that many businesses spend way too much trying to scale before they have product market fit, but many, equally as many, don't go hard enough once they have it. Mm-hmm. This was just like a blanket observation that you had made. What are some examples of that? Like when, I guess what I would hope that the listener would be able to take away from this answer is like, maybe I'm spending too much before I have it, or maybe I'm not spending enough. Like if you're in the middle of it, what are you looking for?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great place to jump off, and I can definitely answer that. So have we begun officially?
We started the interview. Yep.
So the question being is, my observation is basically there are two ways to get this answer wrong. Answer number one is I don't know that I have product market fit, and I'm trying to supplement, surrogate, or support a bad system, namely no product market fit. Or on the flip side of that, I have product market fit and I'm pursuing it like I may not, or I'm allowing way too much room and way too much oxygen to get into the marketplace. And so if you look at kind of the framework that I'm playing with for my book, this kind of comes out in what I'm calling the $1 billion bullseye. And the $1 billion bullseye is basically a bullseye, just like on a dartboard, that as you nail areas, your bullseye gets bigger. Because obviously if the whole thing is a bullseye, it's a hell of a lot easier to hit than just hitting the bullseye. So as you look at life through this concentric circle lens, you have the first three that are going to be foundational. If you don't nail these, the amplifiers, 4 of them that come following, really aren't going to help you. So if you think about the way that I view business, and I'm going to be answering the question that we started with, it starts out with purpose in the middle, followed by profit, followed by product. Those are going to be your core 3. If you don't have those core 3, there is no business. There's no reason to dive into any of the other areas. And the 4 amplifiers you're then going to have after product are going to be prestige, promotion, persuasion, and people. So that's going to be customer experience is kind of the prestige that's created around interacting with your product. Promotion is going to be marketing. Persuasion is going to be sales. People are going to be the people that you hire to run all of these systems. So you're going to see those foundational elements come out in my answer. But if you look at the way this goes wrong, if you don't have product market fit and you're unaware of it, you're going to be relying on these amplifiers to fix what is a fundamental issue. It's almost like you have no profit and you believe you're going to make up for it in volume, or you have no foundation, but you believe you're going to make up for it in height and width in a building. It just doesn't work. That if you have the greatest marketing in the world pointed at poor product market fit, your acquisition economics are going to be terrible and you're going to build a terrible business. And what we're finding out right now, like Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, you find out who was swimming naked. We're looking at technology companies that never had product market fit. They had an exciting concept, they had a great pitch deck, and they had some charismatic leaders that were able to sell a vision that wasn't steeped in educated product market fit with empirical validation. It was a nice idea that was brought out with very fancy branding, very fancy marketing, a commitment to sales, whether there was product fit or not. And those models are just not going to make. Now, that's a very common mistake, one that we see lots of examples of, lots of bodies on the side of the road of people that went down that road and didn't make it. The idea, the lack of product market fit, and the sexiness of the premise and the promise, but not the product, got them through seed, maybe a Series A, maybe a Series B given the previous market, but they never made it past that. They ran out of runway. Let's talk about the other group. And the other group is basically, we have product market fit, but we're not really executing with urgency or intensity. So this is one where if you're asking yourself, do I have product market fit? And, Jay Cron, it's wonderful to know that this is the 2 ways I can screw this up, but how do I know if I have it? The answer is very simple. If I ask you tomorrow, you are turning off all sales and marketing functions in your business, all organic content, all paid content, all salespeople, every aspect of either demand generation or acquisition through sales channels, all goes away. What happens to your company? If your answer is it dies very, very quickly or dies within a very reasonable amount of time given your churn, you don't have product market fit because you basically are relying on promotion and persuasion to jam people into a funnel and you're hoping to make it up in volume before it all comes undone. You don't have product market fit. If your answer is, well, growth might slow, but it's going to keep going because there is this beneficial flywheel of promotion and persuasion that's taking place in the conversations my users are having with other potential users, or the results that they're generating are so self-evident, it's moving forward on its own. You have product market fit. That it's almost as if the right answer is the company will continue to grow, maybe not as fast. That's good. Great is the company's going to continue to grow and I can't stop it from growing. I can't turn off the inquiries. I can't turn off the referrals. That's your gold standard of product market fit. So let's assume you either have good or gold standard product market fit. Then the question is, how much intensity are you bringing to the execution of that? Because here's what happens. Congratulations, you have product market fit. But you won't have product market fit alone forever. That there are people that are also seeking product market fit in your market. Unless you somehow chose a market that nobody's discovered, which more than likely means there's no money in it. Sorry. But people are going to be watching you. People are going to be discovering you. People are going to be iterating on the features you're bringing. The only advantage you have after product market fit is speed of execution. So if you look at Frank Slootman, CEO of Snowflake, arguably one of the pound for pound greatest CEOs ever in the tech industry, who has now had multi-billion-dollar successes, not once, not twice, 3 times. This is a guy who has a business book called Amp It Up that is literally a handbook on raise your standards, raise your focus on intensity, raise your level of execution. That's it. He didn't talk about OKRs. He didn't talk about MBOs. He didn't talk about here's how to measure it, here's how to check in. It was literally how high are you holding your standards, how often are you executing to those standards, and how intensely are you carrying forward that message and effort. And so if you think about it, like if you've ever driven on the East Coast and you're in traffic, East Coast is very different than West Coast. West Coast, people use their blinker, normally wait for there to be enough room. On the East Coast, if there is daylight between cars, somebody's going to be merging into those lanes. When you have product market fit, you are in traffic on the East Coast, and if you leave daylight between the cars around you, somebody else is jumping into your lane and somebody else is going to be jumping on the waves that you're making. They're going to be jumping on the story that you're telling. They're going to be jumping on the product fit elements that you're bringing. So if you're not executing with intensity, you're going to look back and realize that when someone writes a book about your industry, you're the footnote to somebody else's champion story. You're going to be the group that popularized the category or started the conversation or brought a new idea to market and paved the way for this industry. You will be the pioneers with arrows in the back while the settlers come in and flourish. And it will be because you missed out on the execution. The product market fit is so unbelievably important because without it, you have no foundation. But if you have product market fit and aren't executing like an absolute machine, somebody else can come in, snag your product market fit, out execute you, you get eaten alive. And I think it's oftentimes we as entrepreneurs kind of, I don't know if it's either celebratory or it's either just cathartic to get to a place of rest. That it's like, oh, thank God we did it. I've got product market fit. I'm just going to coast just for a little bit. That's when everybody else starts to creep in. Or maybe it's, oh my gosh, we did it. We cracked product market fit. The business is just going to grow indefinitely. That may be the case, but it depends ultimately on your goal. If your goal after product market fit is, I want to be good enough, I want to make some money, and I want to have a business that continues to grow, you're on the right path. You got your product market fit nailed. The business will continue to grow. You might not be the market leader. You might not be the star in the market. You might be the cash cow in the market. That's okay. But if you're trying to be the star, if you're trying to be the category designer, if you are trying to lead your market, product market fit is the beginning of the execution battle, not the middle, not the end, not the celebratory moment. It's just a signpost along the way that indicates you're on your path, and now it's time to really put your foot in the gas and go.
Yep. Love
and I mean,
that.
quite frankly, we saw this at Kajabi. Like it was an element of and there is an element here that I do want to, in fairness and intellectual integrity, there is a foundational element of market maturation. That if you have found product market fit, but let's say you found product market fit in a highly technical category. Like let's say there's OpenAI's platform and ChatGPT, as miraculous as it is, but it was only accessible if you were a developer that were able to work with the code base to query it. That would be product market fit, but it would not have market maturity to allow you to execute with that level of intensity because the market was not yet ready for that. But what you watched happen is OpenAI built this technology. They had product market fit and they knew it. And then when market maturity came into play, you watched them take off like a rocket ship and reach 1 million active users faster than anybody. I think they did it in like a week, like something obscenely crazy. Yeah. That's where you see product market fit, execution meet market maturity. So that's the only, market maturity is the only aspect that I don't believe is entirely within our control, because educating a market is kind of like trying to boil an ocean, that you can do it, but you better make sure you've got enough resources and enough time to bet into it for as long as that will take. So those would be kind of the caveats, but that's really how I view what happens if you celebrate too early, spike the ball at the 2-yard line and never end up scoring because you got product market fit and thought you were done, and then somebody comes in and just out executes you.
Love that. I mean, Frank Slootman is just like, the first time I read that LinkedIn post, Amp It Up, I felt something inside. I'm like, man, like, this is who I want to be as a leader.
Well,
and I love that he's like, show up at a place, like, turn it up. People will vote with their feet. The right people will be energized by turning it up. And like, the first time I read it, I looked at my team and I'm like, I don't know. Now I'm doing it. Everybody who's on board is like, fuck yeah. Yep. They're like, how do we go harder? Right? Like this is not about like, oh, my vacation time, this, that, and the other. They're like, how do we crush it harder? Like, how do I give more to this? Right.
Well, and that's where I see us in the inflection point of evolution in the technology world, is we're in this cycle where tough times make strong people make good times make weak people, and weak people make tough times. Yeah. In my opinion, we are right now on the precipice of weak people creating tough times, which are going to create strong people. And you can swap people for companies or whatever word you feel more comfortable with. But the reality of it is, we have kind of come out of a season that looked very similar to the 2000s. That in the 2000s, in the late 90s, if you had a .com domain and a pitch deck, somebody was giving you a check. That the idea was so hot, so promising, nobody could not get money. And in the season we're coming out of, you saw companies raising at 25 times, 50 times, 100 times forward-looking revenue with no profit, with no business model, with no sense of anything other than we have cheap financing available, and it's going to be available endlessly. And you're now going to see this contagion effect where the private market vintages that went into those markets, they're going to have a tough time pulling those out in most cases. So now they're going to pull back more and be more conservative with what they raise next, which is going to constrain the companies that are both needing constraining, but also the companies that, quite frankly, deserve the funding and are growing really well. Both are going to be constrained equally. And so you have this cycle that is going to take out a lot of the weak ideas, a lot of the weak companies, and a lot of the companies that have employee bases that have really been lulled into this false sense of tech utopia that was never the business. That, it was... and if you've ever seen the video of the woman walking around Twitter about her average work day as, a Twitter employee, at no point does she do any work. She gets in, she drops her dry cleaning off, she goes to the company espresso bar, then heads to the rooftop for some meditation or de-stressing from the challenge of dropping her dry cleaning off, to then get a smoothie, to then get a lunch, to then play some ping pong, to then meet up with the friends for a Twitter happy hour, to then head home and start over the next day. And you're like... Right. That's not a job. There's no value that's been delivered. You are the problem. And the fact that we have a generation of developers and a generation of product teams and a generation of salespeople and a generation of customer experience people, that everything went so effortlessly, they're now going to be looking for that everywhere. And to your point, Adam, and to Frank Slootman's point, if you put that intensity and you put that expectation, people will vote with their feet. The people that really want to achieve something great are going to be so excited because they won't have to deal with the girl that never shows up to the meeting because she's too busy dropping off her dry cleaning, getting a smoothie, getting a coffee. And it could just as easily be a guy. It could just as easily be someone dressed up as their favorite plant. Whatever it is, those team members no A player ever wanted to work with. And fortunately now, at the right company, they're not going to have to.
Yeah, and something, I remember the first time I heard this about Amazon, I was working on Wall Street and it just was it was impossible for me to get my head around. Jeff Bezos would tell people, you don't work at Amazon for the money. You'll make way more money at other places, you know, which I think over time they probably had to change that a little bit. Like, but that's like, and he also had a thing. He's like, you work smart, you work hard, or you work long. You can't pick 2 out of 3 at Amazon.
Yeah.
You know? And
it was always the old one where it used to be like you pick 2 and Amazon you can pick 3.
Yeah, right. And like just advertising that so forwardly, right? Like by no stretch of the imagination, you know, it's like I want the message to be, you know, for this, I've repeated this like 5 times, this John Dutton thing that you said, because I think it so perfectly represents what everyone should be doing with their work and public effort. It's like, you got to know what you're getting into. And like, I want one of my videos to be like, this is not chill, right? Yeah. Like, don't fool yourself. Like I go home at 5:30 every day, but like, I am thinking about this constantly. And like, so are they. And like, that's what we like about this, right? If you're not, people, it's not going to gel correctly. Like you're whatever.
And I mean, in so many ways too, it should be a wake-up call and a rallying cry that if anyone is watching this video and you just can't wait for 5 p.m. to roll around so you can bail out of the office, find something you care about because it's just a sad existence. Like, I mean,
totally.
You have no idea how many days you're going to have that you're going to feel that same way. And I mean, it's better to be broke and excited than it is to be mildly comfortable and terribly upset every single day. Like the trade is not even close.
Yeah. Did you ever read the Clayton Christensen book, How Would You Measure Your Life?
No, I haven't. Is it a good one?
So like, he's got the great disruptive innovation theories. He also wrote, he's a Mormon guy. He wrote this book about sort of what he perceived as a problem that corporate America was creating for people's lives. And he's like, I went to Harvard Business School, 5-year reunion, everyone's killing it. They're all investment bankers or consultants. Their wives are hot. Like everybody's super happy. 10 years, 50% of the people are divorced. 20 years, the brightest student, Jeffrey Skilling, is in fucking jail. And he's like, what happened? Right? And like, there's a couple very memorable things. And I reread the book a couple of years ago and I didn't like it as much. I read it in a transitional phase the last time when I was like in between Wall Street and starting a tech company. And at the time I was like very sort of effusive for this type of thing or whatever. I was seeking it or something like that. But 2 things were like very impactful about that book. One, he's like, this machine is making people accept very little incremental lifestyle benefits for horrible sacrifice, right? Horrible sacrifice. I mean, I did that investment banker job. Like, that is not good. Like, I'm much more into people's energy now than I was when I was working on Wall Street. I wouldn't have identified it as that, but like so I started in investment banking and I moved to trading for this feeling that I had when I was on the trading floor. People actually looked like they enjoyed their lives. You know, they like kind of were into this gambling they were doing, right? The investment bank, like you'd walk around this floor and I just saw, like, I was just out of college, but I was like, these people look fucking miserable. Mm-hmm. All of them. Like the guys at the top do, the guys at the bottom do, like, I got to get out of here. So there was that concept. And then there was this concept of like, if you were to ask somebody what the top 5 most important things are in their life and put that on one side of the T-chart, and then you put on the other side of the T-chart what they spent most of their time doing, not only would you see it was totally misaligned, the time chart is actually what is important to that person. That was his assertion, at least, you know?
Well, and I mean, he couldn't be more right. Like, I mean, any of us just with an ounce of reflection, it becomes so self-evident because a business cannot solve the problems that entitled team members want it to solve. Flat out can't. Like, a business cannot do what a business is meant to do for whom it is meant to do it for and what those individuals expect from it if the business is also meant to solve everyone's personal life issues at the same time. Like, how in the world is a business meant to deliver transformational value for its customers if that business is also meant to be a political tool, and a political tool that satisfies every political agenda, not just one?
Right.
And it has to also satisfy the fulfillment agenda, that you need to be happy and you need to bring your whole person and you need to be able to get vegan food, or you need to be able to get carnivore food, or you need to be able to juice, or you need to be able to do yoga. Like, all of a sudden,
sounds exhausting.
It literally is like, how could a company possibly exist to achieve all of those goals in tandem? And the simple answer is it was never meant to. It was only meant to do what it's meant to do, and the rest of those things are up to you to figure out. And if you're at a company where you're looking for the company to do everything but the thing the company does, you're at the wrong company. You need to find a company that you want to be part of what the company is meant to do. And that's just plain and simple. That's where it starts and stops for me.
So we clearly see eye to eye on this John Dutton work in public thing. Do you think that you have to be, like, video comes naturally to me. I've come up with this system where I can spend an hour typing out hooks, stories, 3 lessons, soft CTA, whatever. And I can just do 3 to 5 minute videos and bang them all out very quickly. Do you think there's a type of leader who this just founder brand doesn't work for? Or is it like, I guess my question is, it took me a while to get converted to this. Mm-hmm. Now it seems very natural to me, and I'm getting so much back from it that I'm literally trying to figure out how to go harder. My LinkedIn guy's like, we can't do anything else. I'm like, well, it needs to get better than the quality, right? Like, it's just crazy what's coming back from it. So, like, I'm picturing somebody listening to this, thinking what I was thinking before I started doing it, and thinking, I can't do it because I don't look like he does, or I am not as articulated as Jay Cron. Like, I don't sound like that when I write or talk.
Just to be clear, for everybody watching this video, feel free to let us know in the comments if you agree with Adam's assertion that he's the good-looking one and I'm the articulate one. I just want to point out that just happened. Like, that's a little bit of a microaggression right there, and so that just happened right there.
I apologize. I mean, I just
don't apologize. It was a great shot. I'll take it. If I'm the articulate guy, that's cool. But no, I think to your point, that's what makes a founder brand so necessary, is that we don't need everyone to be you or to be me. We need everyone to be them. Like, if you are the ultimate introvert with a face made for radio and the idea of talking extemporaneously just scares the shit out of you, my bet is you are probably one of the most cogent, effective, written communicators on the planet, because you have built over the term of your life the skill of written communication to either supplement or support how you like to interact with the world. And we're now in a world where you don't need to be embarrassed about being an introvert. You don't need to worry that you communicate best in writing. You just now need to find the venues that is best suited for. And I believe today, Twitter combined with blogging and an email newsletter, you've got all of the amplification you need for that founder brand to be able to exist in that universe of just getting to write and edit till your heart's content. Now, is there a bit more of a production burden than just hopping on video, talking about it, having someone transcribe it and put it everywhere? There totally is. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it. And if anything, there might be benefits to being better thought out, more methodical, and more precise in your communication. Because I don't believe that we're in a volume game anymore. And if we still are in a slight hangover of the content volume game, AI is going to kill that really, really, really quickly. The idea of, I'm just going to produce a lot of undifferentiated, mental masturbatory thought leader stuff that gets likes and tweets from everyone else that's producing the same mental masturbatory stuff, that's done. Because AI can build that themselves faster than we can. The noise, the junk food of the internet is gone. And all it's going to do is push independent thought and insight to a level of attention that we've never had before. Because we're moving to a place where all of that junk food is going to be so prevalent and so produced, you're now going to have the burden of getting it all out of the way so you don't miss the signal, so you don't miss the insight, so you don't miss the actual information that will be lost in a sea of crap.
So, two things here. One, Santosh, this sweet 55-year-old Indian man who has completely changed my life in every way and is transitioning to our COO. Last night at midnight, he was messing around with GTP3 and he made a rap about retention.com. And it's like amazing. You know, it's like it hammers all, like, it's just incredible how good these things are. And two, I feel like this is something I don't say enough given the trajectory of this thing I've been doing ever since it has become more of my words and less of Tommy's words writing for me. This authenticity thing is like everything. Because I feel like on LinkedIn especially, you can like get, you know, these guys to write for you who are writing for other people. They have a network of a bunch of accounts. They comment and like and stuff like that. But like when I am just commenting on my experience, you know, and like explaining what I think is going to happen over the next month, you know, with what we're doing, or like opining on, for instance, why I think Klaviyo and Shopify are going to destroy the companies up market when they go up market. Like,
which by the way, absolutely agree with you. And they 1,000,000%
destroy, like destroy.
Which by the way, for anyone watching, if you are an enterprise software company and you have relied on complexity and technical teams being necessary to operate your widget, whatever it may be, the moment that someone who has gone through the crucible of working with early stage entrepreneurs and made a tool that's capable of delivering at enterprise level with the ease of use that a solopreneur can understand and leverage, you're fucked entirely.
Dude.
I mean, it's absolutely over.
Yeah. So finishing that thought, I see the numbers and then I see the responses and I see people writing me DMs back on the type of content. It's like, there is just no question that like the GTP3 thing is a theme that's amplifying it. But like Tommy, the guy who helps me take my videos and make them LinkedIn text, he calls it LinkedIn gold. It's like anything that is authentic or emotionally honest is the summary, right? Like LinkedIn will just take that and like people just they love it.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that everyone knows it, but I just don't think anyone's often brave enough consistently enough to lean into it. Like none of us needs another morning routine post.
Right.
None of us. Because the likelihood of anyone's morning routine working for you, absolute zero chance. Like, good news. Oprah wakes up whenever she wants. Somebody brings her coffee. She then does yoga. She then has a personal shopper come by. She then has lunch. She then checks email maybe or talks to whoever, checks her email, and she goes to bed. That post offers you absolutely zero insight whatsoever to your life or how to create success. Absolutely none. But I guarantee you it'll be one of the most popular posts in the world because it gives that momentary dopamine hit. It gives you that perceived progress that you can go to bed at night saying, I did something. I moved my life forward tangibly one step. But it's really junk food. It really is. It's junk food for your brain.
Totally. So can we talk about when you went from bootstrap to wanting to scale? I was very uncomfortable doing it myself. I talked to you about it and it didn't totally feel right to me because I just wanted more of a commitment than you were willing to give at that point in your life. Santosh was actually willing to do it. And I have just having someone who has been there over and over again is like, it's the greatest feeling in the world. There's nothing like someone telling you this is normal. Did you have that voice when you did it?
It was two different discussions, decidedly. Discussion number one was, this can be a thing. If we don't make it a thing, somebody else is going to.
Right.
So let's make it a thing. Because the bottom line is, it's going to take, within a standard deviation of work, the same amount to make it a thing as to not make it a thing. It's not that much. Like going from 40 hours to 50 hours, it's not like going from 0 to 40. So you're in it already. The question is, what's your level of focus and intensity while you're in it? So the first step was that. It was, no, this is a thing that we are going to make it. We're going to own it. We are going to take that to the limits. When we decided to go from bootstrapped and bring on institutional capital, that for us was a very different discussion. That was much more about an intellectual group that we wanted to be surrounded by, much more so than the financial side of things. We were bootstrapped. We were very profitable. We were not limited in any way by the financial constraints of the company as far as what we wanted to take on or how we wanted to take it on. But what we were limited by was our own experience set and our own industry lens. So every single day as a bootstrap company, the great news is you're the biggest you've ever been on Wednesday, and you'll be the biggest you've ever been on Thursday, and you'll be bigger still on Friday. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're only going to see what you've seen at the level you've seen it at. And you also have a bit of industry blindness, which is a good quality because it allows you to execute within your industry better than anybody because it's where you live. But if you're only in your industry, it also makes you very vulnerable to what's going on the periphery. And it also makes you vulnerable from the decision set you're using to guide and nurture this thing to its eventual conclusion. So when we started talking to Spectrum Equity, it became very apparent that we needed to partner with someone that had kind of, to your point, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and were going to be able to advise us on what that journey looked like. Now, what for us was hugely transformational was that transition of the bootstrap mentality to the institutional growth mentality. That when we were bootstrapped, every dollar we saved went to the bottom line and then just got divvied up. It was, hey, let's not buy that because we can save the money and then we can have the money. That's super cool. When you move into that institutional realm, it's the dollars that are saved so that they can be reallocated to the growth initiatives that are winning. So it's not save the money to have the money. It is save the money to invest the money and keep feeding that growth wheel. And had we not made that transition, we would have headed right into COVID with a bootstrap mentality that I don't know what that future would have looked like. I know what it might have looked like. It might have looked like bootstrapped, oh my goodness, maybe playing a little bit scared, world's uncertain, what's everything going to look like, how do we do this? Maybe we would have been undercapitalized, we would have been underprepared for the hiring and the growth that COVID brought to our front door, that had we not been prepared to serve that as the world decided that digital was a primary and not an afterthought, I don't know that we would have been able to execute in those seasons as confidently if it was still just a bootstrapped growth approach. So that's the alternate reality, that if we live in a multiverse and I ever get to buy a ticket, boy, I want to watch what would have happened had we chosen that path, just because I'd be curious. But I think that it's something that you'll know when it's right because you'll be asking yourself different questions. And it's far more a personal psychological journey than it ever is a financial one. Because ultimately, if it's a financial one, you'll find that by the way I evaluate businesses, and this is my dysfunction, it's nobody else's, if you're looking for institutional capital to fix your capital issues, you've got a fundamental flaw in your business, in my opinion. It means that you're building something in a way that you're either being lazy, you're being dumb, or you're being overly and unnecessarily ambitious for the season that you're in. If you need the money to fix your issue. That's my opinion. And so I think that if you're looking at it and you find yourself saying, well, I'm profitable, but I know this could be bigger and I know this could be faster, and I'm seeing there being a land grab developing of the people that are in my universe that I need to out execute, that I need to outspend, that I need to make sure I am growing this real estate and keeping all of it versus giving some of it up based on my capabilities today. When you're asking yourself those questions, that may be the time where you say, maybe we do need some different minds around the table. Now, I would say in our case, when we had those conversations for the first time, we were very fortunate that we had the latitude of financial flexibility to choose the qualities in that group that we wanted. That goes back to our tacos and tequila test, where it was basically, if we wouldn't have tacos and tequila with these guys, even if we never did any business with them, it's a non-starter. Yeah. And that test for us truly saved us from some of the worst financial partners, who will remain nameless, that we could have chosen. Because there were people that literally didn't even want to finish the lunch we were having with them, much less lock arms and go, take on the world together. And thankfully, we chose the right partner that was thoroughly committed to the core values of the company that were uncovered in those interactions. But if we had a runway and we had a burn rate and we had a timeline that if we don't get cash in the door, we got problems, we might have been forced to take on bad partners. And then we would have just hated life. We would have just been another totally hollowed out growth company getting pencil whipped by a PE group in a spreadsheet. And I don't know that the vision would have ever been actualized. So I would say that if you're asking yourself those type of questions, institutional capital may be right for you. And if you're using institutional capital as a way to amplify your intellectual capital or a way to amplify your business model, those are the reasons to do it. If you're looking to it to fix your burn rate or you're looking to it to fix your problems, I think it's going to be a real painful learning experience that I don't think is going to give you the outcome you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, don't ever give money to someone who needs it, right? That's like the short answer there.
What is it? A bank of any kind is a group that'll give you an umbrella when it's sunny outside and they'll ask for it back when it's raining.
Right, exactly.
So it very much is one of those things. And I think also, too, there's such a survivorship bias to the finance darlings. You don't hear about the companies that blew up the financing. You hear about the round, and then you hear nothing. You don't hear about the round, and they blew all the money, and they went away, and nobody knows what happened. It's always round, oh my gosh, so cool. And then you hear round, amazing exit, totally crazy numbers, they won. Yeah. You don't hear about round, and they blew it all. It just is very, very rare. I think the only group that you hear about that from is WeWork. I mean, you have to fail so spectacularly for the world to find out about it that, it's just a different world. So I think that were we to peel back the layer on the failed angels, the failed seed rounds, the failed venture capital groups, all of those areas, you would see a preponderance of bad ideas that should have never been given money.
Right.
There was no profit. There was no business.
Totally. So what ARR, what revenue level were you at when you had the Spectrum conversation?
So we were,
and was this coming out of going for it? Was this at the bootstrap moment or was this later?
No, this was post the decision. This was probably about 4 years after the let's build this moment.
Got it.
So
it was like 100 million ARR, right? Or no?
So initially when I joined, we were at 6 million ARR.
Yeah.
And at that moment, it was no longer lifestyle. Let's build this thing to the moon.
Yeah.
And so you figure we probably 5x'd the company in the period of that time to partnering with Spectrum Equity.
Yeah.
And then after Spectrum Equity, it was about another year and a half to partnering with Tiger Global, Owl Rock, TPG, Meritech, and Tidemark. So that's kind of how that transitioned. But no, it was a full 4 years after it was like, okay, we're going to double down on this growth machine. And that was largely... Go ahead.
Well, finish your thought. I don't want to...
Yeah, no, I was going to say it was largely brought about by the fact that we began, going back to where we started today of talking about what happens when you leave daylight or when you leave too much oxygen in a room in a competitive environment, what happens... We began to see competitors popping up that really weren't and should never have been competitors. Like we watched people that were customers of Kajabi that thought it was a great platform, that thought it was a great industry, that then went and built a complete and utter ripoff of Kajabi and started trolling on Twitter to get users. And that was the business strategy. But that happened because we allowed it to. Like we allowed our, I guess let's call it discovery of this industry, but lack of expansion and defense moats to just open it up to, oh wow, you know, this is a thing. Maybe I should start a company here too. You know, you almost find, I mean, the way that I describe it, and it's not, you know, anything that insightful, but it's sort of the Toast effect that the founder of Toast was talking about to us, where it's almost like, you know, you've arrived when people start niching out what you do the way that you niched it out. So Toast was point of sale and SaaS for restaurants.
Yep.
But then all of a sudden you saw, well, we're like Toast, but only for pizzerias. Or we're like Toast, but only for bagel shops. Sure. And all of a sudden you see that you started a market, grew a market, and the market then expanded, and everyone else was like, ooh, I'm going to do this. It was almost like the Uberification of things, where Uber's like, wait a second, this ride sharing is a thing. So Lyft's like, yeah, it might be. Let's jump into that. And then you had like Hey Jane, which was like, it was Uber, but only female drivers for female passengers. And then, you know, I don't know how many other iterations of that effect were followed on, but that's kind of where you begin to see signal. And now maybe in all the examples I offered up, maybe the leaders of those companies said those niches are not significant enough for us to broaden our offering to also suck up that market share. That might have been a conscious choice. But were I a betting man, I would be betting that they left that oxygen, they left that daylight, and somebody chose to hop in and grab it. Sure. And very similar to us, you know, it was, oh yeah, Kajabi does all of these things. Well, we do this one thing better than Kajabi. So like, for example, there's, you know, platforms out there that were only checkout platforms. That's all they did. Right. And, you know, it was an area that candidly for Kajabi, it's something that I think, if we were honest, has lagged in our ability to really execute masterfully in that area. And so it left oxygen, and there's half a dozen checkout platforms I can name that they do this one thing, and they're still relying on Kajabi to do all of the other things. Right. But because they do this one thing better, it's like, okay, I'll pop that guy in.
Yeah. I'm going to say something that I think you're going to love. So I mentioned Santosh a bunch. He's like, we need to be, the 6 executives, we need to be meeting once every 2 months in person. And then like, he gave this presentation at our first executive meeting that was like one of the most inspiring things I've ever been a part of. And he said a few things that were just unbelievable to me, that I was just like, fuck yes. Like sort of like reading Amp It Up, right? Yeah. And by the way, I've said this guy is like such a sweet, old, humble Indian man, right? And like, so the thing that was like the most, I was just like, oh my God, yes. Like, he's like talking about like the S curve, how it, and I just relate that so much, like banging your head against the wall for, 10 years or whatever. And then in tech, all of your success comes at once. It's all vertical. And like, then your challenge is find another S curve so that when that flattens out, you're going up again, right? Like that's how the great companies are born. And then he's like, we were in this unbelievable position where we had 6 employees, 12 million ARR, no marketing spend, and like $700K per month free cash to do whatever the fuck we wanted with, right? And we were just distributing it.
The moment that happens, it's like, I have solved the world's problems. Everything is fixed. Like,
totally, but like,
oh my
it
God.
Still wasn't. The churn was bad because we hadn't honed it on the ICP and we hadn't fixed the featured set and the pricing to where it was like low churn. So that's why I was still like, it's not time to go yet. And quite frankly, I was looking at Ross Paquette's business, who Diana Ross, my partner, used to work for. And this dude had basically gotten to 30 million 8 years ago with a 70% total margin, and he owned all the equity, and he was distributing himself $20 million a year for 10 years. And I was like, well, that's interesting. But like we said before, I know now Ross he's kind of fucking, he wants a bigger thing, right? We all do. It's like, if you're not on the vertical part of the S curve, right?
Like if you think about that point though, just touching on that. So for everyone listening, you are going to have a point that if you have product market fit in a business that you own a significant or all of, you will have a moment of an existential crisis. And the existential crisis is, oh my gosh, I have the money that I hoped I would have. I have met my financial goals. And then there will be a period of celebration that will likely lead to a period of questioning, that will likely lead to a period of rediscovery, and bringing you back to the fact that the growth and fulfillment and being able to deliver value to the world is why you got started anyway. And then you start that S-curve all over again.
Totally.
And just like Ross, just like you, just like me,
yeah.
all of us, no matter what happens, and by the way, all of you listening to this, even though I told you that, you're going to want to experience the existential crisis for yourself. I know I want to as well, because every time anyone told me about it, I'm like, oh no, that won't happen to me.
Right.
Well, then it
Totally.
happened to me. So you're going to want to do it. I get it.
Yeah.
But just know it's going to happen.
So Santo, back to what Santos was saying, he's like, so few businesses get to the position where money doesn't matter. And specifically, the money that they get from their business transactions with people has absolutely no impact on any part of their plans, right? And he's like, I just ran this so lean for so long that we were there. Like we could add employees as fast as possible and not eat through the cash flow. I could sponsor every event in e-com, every newsletter in e-com, and hire employees until we couldn't manage them, and we still wouldn't eat through the cash flow, right? So he's like, and this is what really...
You do all of those things trying to spend it, and then damn it grew again.
Yeah,
it's still
and
back.
this is what he's saying. He's like, this puts you in the incredible position to where you can behave in a way where you absolutely destroy anyone who even tries to attempt to enter the market. I'm like, that sentence, like having this man just like say that, and it's like this, like I've never been around someone that ambitious, but it's like a different type of ambition. It is not greed. Like this is a guy who has it's so hard to describe, right? But it's like this incredible, like it's a MailChimp type of ambition. It's like, I'm going to set up my market presence in a way to where you can't even enter. Like you could maybe get your business to 2 or 3 million ARR, but there is no way for you to get past that, because I will bid up every single channel and I will make it free for 90% of the market. And I'm going to have a better brand than you, and I'm going to have better people than you, and I'm going to move faster than you, and I have no bugs, and like all this. By the way, like somehow Klaviyo did this niche down thing. They're like, okay, for Shopify, we're going to have the monopoly, right? Which like I made a video on that too. I'm like, how incredible is it that this company with a monopoly like MailChimp was able to create another monopoly for who they were selling to, right? But it's this type of ambition, right? It's like we have to be so good that people can't even think about competing with us. They're literally looking at it and they're like, nah, just go somewhere else.
Even the iteration beyond that is after you've gotten so big that you can destroy anybody that isn't better than you. The next stage is if they were better than you, then you just buy them. That literally the next moat of, well, if I can't beat you, it's probably because you're doing something better. I better just buy you. Right. And that was Adobe and Figma. I mean, it was one of those, Adobe had to buy Figma because Figma's net dollar retention, they would have eaten them eventually. So it was like, all right, we tried. We tried to kill you, but we can't. You figured something out. Good on you. Can we just buy you, please? Right. And then, if you're one of those entrepreneurs that's in it for the money, you're like, yeah, totally. I'll take the check. Let's do this. And then if you're not in it for the money, like an Elon Musk, you're like, nah, screw off. I'm just going to change the world and keep dunking on you.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's the moment where you really find out, why are you in it? So, but there's no doubt about it, those iterations. And what I love about your story is that is being channeled and conveyed by somebody that you would probably never expect that energy to come from. That, you're seeing someone that's like, no, live and let live. And he's like, no, you don't understand. This is a rare thing that we have found.
Totally.
Rather than celebrate the rarity, we're going to make sure that we protect it, that we scale it, that we make it even more strong in that category, that it is unassailable.
Yeah. And like what I love about it is he's such an empathetic guy as well. Like just ultra. It's like, not that these qualities should be mutually exclusive, but like in my mind, like you're a killer if you think like that. And in some ways he is, but in the other, in ways of dealing with employees and customers and the ecosystem and everything else, he's like the gentlest human being in the world, right? It's this incredible combination that like is just such a great example for me to try to
Well,
emulate
I
as my
hope
career.
everyone listening hears that, because I think that you and I have both spent plenty of time in plenty of rooms of entrepreneurs where it feels like you can't be empathetic and have high expectations. That it's almost like for you to be empathetic, you are required to dilute your expectations of the people that you hire because you're empathetic. And that just simply isn't the case.
Right.
That you can absolutely be empathetic and ambitious. You can have both, and you can navigate accordingly. You don't have to be somebody that just tolerates whatever is brought to you in the name of being an empathetic leader. You definitely, nobody's calling you to do that.
I want to bring up another example that I think perpetuates, that's going on for me right now today, that I think perpetuates this story and this energy a little bit that I'm trying to describe. So I feel like Santosh and I get along so well because we both believe that, you know, through giving more to everyone, it will energize our employees and the ecosystem and excite people to the maximum possible level. There's this vendor in our space called Yotpo. They have 30,000 customers who fucking hate them. Why? Because 7 years in a row, they've raised prices by 100% and they've said, fuck you, my numbers are, you know, without even listening to the customers. It's like, yeah. I know the founders, they're these rough Israeli guys, and like, that's how they operate, right?
Yep.
So
you don't like, go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and they're like, look, we still have 30,000 customers. Fuck you, right?
Okay. Like, double price. We get 15,000. That's fine. Same money.
And like the ecosystem hates them. And now they have like their most charming guys literally trying to like schmooze these influencers into not talking shit. It's like they're trying to undo something that can't be undone, right?
Mm-hmm. Look, can we ask you to stop telling the truth about us? That would be ideal. That would be ideal.
So like, this is, Santosh is like, he had this great idea in our second offsite. He's like, what if we made our company about accelerating the personal and professional growth of our employees before our customers, right? So examples of what that would look like. We will help you. The purpose of you working here, if you want to think about yourself as a product, your career is a widget, we are raising the value of that product and helping you maximize the value of your next job, right? And, you know, instead of giving you, you know, kegerator with nitro, it's like we're getting you coaches and Audible, everything governed around that, right? So we hire this guy from Yotpo, who's like the darling of this ecosystem. He's fucking amazing. He gets here. Day one was February 1st. He's like, we need to cut affiliate commissions to 1 year payout for 20%. And then they pulled me onto this call. They're like, Laz wants to cut our commissions to 1 year. What do you think about this? And they all know. I'm like, guys, like, okay, first of all, how many affiliate accounts do we have that have been created? 291. How many are we actually paying? 26. It's like, affiliate, as an aside, I think it's the greatest thing in the world, and we don't pay on 1/100th of the conversations these guys are having about us, right? And I'm like, the juju we're trying to create is like maximum excitement. What the ecosystem will feel if we bring on Laz and he does that is they're going to say they hired someone from Yotpo. They're going to start behaving like Yotpo. That's what Yotpo did to us. Absolutely not, right? Another example of trying to explain this to Laz, who we hired, is apparently at their executive offsite at Yotpo's, after I hired Laz, who's like, you know, a top 3 producer in their company, they had a meeting to figure out how to not let a Laz thing ever happen again. When I hired Laz, I said, you have a 3-year vesting schedule. I'm going to make you over $10 million, and I will make you $100 million at your next job, because that's what I'm going to set you up to do, right? It's just the opposite orientation. Like Yotpo is trying to maximize enterprise value, but through hoarding. Whereas like we are trying to maximize enterprise value through giving. Kind of community building-ish in a way, but like I feel like this is part of this extremely high standards, but empathetic. You know, it's just, it's part of it is this pull system we're talking about. It's like, to me, it's like all in sort of a similar vein.
It's just
you know?
old school thinking versus new school thinking.
Yeah.
It is such a nuanced but rarely discussed differentiator in how companies think. And the way that I liken it is it's like old school is screw you, our refund policy is 14 days, you reached out on day 15, fuck off. New school is Viore, happiness is promised, return it whenever you want, don't care if you remove the tags, if you don't like it, we don't want you stuck with it.
Right.
That's new school. That's old school. When you look at the idea of, hey, we're just going to screw over our affiliates, that's old school because some accountant said, well, gosh, if we cut the payout to 1 year, look at how much we recapture. New school is asking, well, cookies are not a perfect science. How many conversations or pieces of earned or owned media are you in because somebody's talking about it, even though they might not get credit for that specific click?
Right.
You can't quantify it. That's where you're winning. So
right.
It's very much this differentiator of old school is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, so only do things that you can measure. New school is I know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and who I'm doing it for, and I'm just going to keep solving for them, and I know I'm going to win.
And
I think it proves out. It really does.
There's this other part of it where it's like, whether you want to call it the spread of the idea virus or however you think about this, like that is a red flag. And regardless of whether it's a major red flag, it's still something that is going to cause someone to stop and think, that's weird and that's not good for me. You know? Whereas like I want to set up these systems. And another thing that I wrote down to ask you about was product channel fit, because I think that we have it right now in my affiliate channel with these guys who have network and e-com businesses. But what I want to set up are these systems, if you want to call it that, where you're only doing things to accelerate this, whatever it is that people talking, it's like it has to be the best thing on their mind. You know what I mean? It's like they can't. It's so good that they couldn't not talk about it, right?
Well,
and like
at its foundational core, what you're saying is, no matter what the engagement is, I want interests aligned. That if we are making a decision as a company as it relates to our employees, are their interests and our interests aligned? Because if that wins, we will win. If we're making a decision on affiliates, are their interests and our interests aligned? If they are, we're all going to win. And I think that's really the underlying principle of how can we make sure they are. So it's like on the surface, old school thinking, the idea of we're going to grow our people is not a successful business model, because then it's, well, how are you monetizing the dollars you're investing in their coaching? Or how are you going to benefit from them going on to bigger and better things and leaving your company because you equipped them to do so and gave them the skills, yada, yada, yada. Very, very old school thinking. New school thinking is, I know that if I endeavor to have the happiest employees on the planet that are fulfilled and excited about what they're doing, they're going to stay longer. I'm going to pay less recruiters. I'm going to have less attrition. I'm going to have less training costs. And the people that do graduate are going to tell everybody how amazing it is here. They're going to tell everyone about the experience. And that brand lift is going to continue to proliferate, because I'm not in this for an overnight thing. I'm in this for a decades-long thing. So it is one of those elements where you're ensuring that by aligning those interests, all of them continue to grow, whereas this transactional methodology is going to make sure that if you don't absolutely maximize every transaction, you're not going to win. And it's one of those things, too, that the old school methodology leaves no room for error. Absolutely none. Like, there is no goodwill, there is no love, there is no excitement. It is one of those areas where if you do not have a perfect business, this isn't going to exist, because no one's going to like you. Like Yotpo is a great example. I mean, they must have some unbelievable product market fit, because that's how they got to where they are, because it's literally like, we hate you and you're still going to come back.
Right.
We are telling you we hate you. We're telling you we don't care about your success.
Totally.
We are telling you we care about nothing but our business. Unfortunately for you, we are so good that you're still here.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. It's just so different than how I view everything, that like,
it's almost like you look at athletes. Like you look at the athletes that are world-class performers, but are really shitty teammates. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go ahead, being a Chicago native and adequately disclaimed, I'm sure I'm going to get a whole lot of hate in your comments, but to me, LeBron James is an unbelievable athlete. Absolutely spectacular. Nobody would take the skill away from him. I don't think he is even in the same league as Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Because if you say both of them are equal as individual contributors, Jordan is 100x the team builder and legacy creator that he built for every single person around him. If you look at where everyone that came up with Jordan went as a result of playing with him, to me, that is a far greater measure of success than just being a great individual contributor. And that's where, when you look at a Yachtpo's view on things, they're basically saying, we're a great individual contributor. We are so great that you can't do without us. But guess what? You're never going to be the company that everybody talks about, unless it's, we hate you. Like, congratulations. You're good, but you're not going to have a team. Like no one's going to go to Yachtpo's funeral. They're just going to be so thrilled that they died and don't have to, deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's much more, if you know that success is guaranteed, if you know that you're going to win, the question is, how do you want to play? Who do you want to bring along? How do you want to be remembered? All of the things that once you realize the scoreboard never satisfies, because no matter how well you do, someone else did better. Then you have to ask yourself, well, if I know that I'm not winning on simply objective empirical comparison, what are all of the other areas that I want to win on because they matter to me? Right. And that's really the difference is it's everyone has a scoreboard, but there are so many elements of how you get to that scoreboard that are massively differentiated.
Yeah. Love that.